The helicopter's blades carved through the bitter sky as we descended toward a grim concrete fortress emerging from the endless white. My breath clouded the frozen pain as I studied the installation below. Far too many sniper nests for any scientific outpost. Far too many layers of razor wire. "Welcome to Outpost Chimera," Major Vance announced as we settled onto the ice. His voice held that particular weight I remembered from my combat tours, the kind that meant classified and perilous. The cold struck like a hammer when I stepped onto the landing platform, 40 below zero, perhaps colder. Each gasp seared my throat. Ice jewels formed on my lashes before I could brush them away. Vance's handshake was firm even through thermal gloves, his weathered features showing no reaction to the deadly chill. "Quite a spot for a research center," I remarked, swinging my duffel over my shoulder. "Isolation offers certain advantages," he responded, gesturing toward the main building, "especially for our particular work." We passed the first security point where guards in full Arctic armor inspected my papers with meticulous attention. The second checkpoint demanded biometric verification. The third forced me to surrender all personal electronics and undergo a thorough physical search. "Seems excessive for communication studies," I noted as we approached the massive entrance. Vance's smile was thin and didn't reach his eyes. "All will become clear soon enough." The facility's doorway resembled a hybrid of bank vault and missile silo. Reinforced walls plunged into the permafrost. I counted no fewer than 12 armed guards for what was supposedly a small research team. My pattern recognition instincts activated immediately. Extreme security, extreme isolation, extreme secrecy. "How deep does this facility extend?" I asked as we entered an elevator requiring 2 key cards. 50 feet down, bedrock foundation. Vance watched the floor indicators descend. The machinery demands absolute stability. The elevator opened onto a narrow passageway that felt submarine-like. Emergency lights cast everything in sterile white. The air carried the flat taste of recycling. My boots echoed on metal grates as we passed laboratories filled with unfamiliar equipment. "Evans." A woman's voice cut through the mechanical drone of ventilation systems. Dr. Eris Thorne emerged from a side corridor, moving with the brisk energy of someone running on caffeine and anticipation. Her auburn hair was tied back practically. Her sharp blue eyes held an intensity that made me instinctively pause. "Major, I'll take responsibility from here." She gave Vance only a brief glance before focusing on me. "You're the pattern recognition specialist, the one who cracked the sandstorm codes." I looked between them, waiting for someone to explain how my classified service records seemed to be common knowledge here. "We need to orient him first," Vance stated. "Security procedures, facility protocols. He can study the manuals later," Thorne said, already moving away and expecting me to follow. "There's no time to delay." Vance's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Don't overwhelm him, Doctor. We need him fully operational." Thorne guided me through multiple airlock chambers that hissed shut behind us. Each compartment required unique access codes. I noted radiation detectors and atmospheric monitors scanning everything that passed through. "What specifically are we protecting against?" I asked as the final airlock completed its cycle. "Not protecting against," Thorne corrected, her hand poised above the final control. "Protecting everyone else from what we contain here." The door opened onto a chamber that made my breath catch. A 20-foot pillar of dark stone stood at the room's center, its surface carved with symbols that seemed to shift when viewed indirectly. The monolith absorbed the overhead lighting without reflection, creating the appearance of a hole in reality. Good heavens, the words escaped before I could stop them. "We uncovered it 3 months ago," Thorne said, circling the perimeter like someone exhibiting a precious discovery. "Encased in ice cores dating back 40,000 years. Untouched until our sensors detected electromagnetic emissions from this exact location." I forced myself to examine the symbols covering its surface, though they made my vision blur. The patterns felt both familiar and utterly alien, like trying to read a language I'd once known but forgotten. "Electromagnetic emissions," I repeated. "What type?" "Structured, patterned, definitely artificial." Thorne called up readings on a tablet showing waveforms resembling encrypted data bursts. "That's why we need your expertise. Your brain detects patterns others miss." The monolith hummed, not audibly, but I felt it deep in my bones. A vibration that resonated with something within my chest. I'd experienced something similar overseas when intercepting complex enemy communications. That sensation of standing at the brink of understanding something profound. "How long has it been active?" I asked. 6 months of low-level emissions. But 3 weeks ago, the patterns changed. Became more intricate. More. She hesitated, searching for the right word. Insistent. I moved closer, studying the symbols that were painful to observe directly. My pattern recognition training engaged automatically, categorizing shapes and relationships even as my conscious mind struggled to process what I was seeing. "You believe it's attempting communication?" "I know it is," Thorne stated, her voice certain. "The question is whether we're intelligent enough to understand what it's saying." The chamber suddenly felt smaller, the weight of 50 feet of concrete and ice pressing down from above. Whatever this was, it had waited beneath the Arctic longer than human civilization had existed. And now, it was speaking. I touched the steel watch on my wrist, my father's watch, and felt the familiar comfort of its weight. But even that couldn't dispel the feeling that I'd stepped into something that would change everything. "So," I said, still staring at the impossible symbols, "where do we begin?" I walked slowly around the monolith. The symbols appeared to shift at the edges of my vision, but remained static when viewed directly. 17 of these objects?" I asked, resting my hand on the edge of Thorne's workstation, all across the globe. 17 that we've found," Thorne confirmed, pulling up a world map on her tablet. Red dots scattered across continents: Nevada, Siberia, the Sahara, Antarctica, always deeply buried, always in remote locations. We've been studying them since the 1950s. The map revealed a pattern I recognized from intelligence briefings: strategic placement, global coverage, redundancy. Someone had wanted to ensure at least one would survive. "That's our theory as well," she said, switching to another screen showing decades of documentation. "Every government that found one tried the same approaches: radio transmissions, electromagnetic pulses, even nuclear testing at the Nevada site. Nothing worked." I examined the files she scrolled through. Teams of scientists, engineers, linguists. Most projects ended with the same notation: no response detected. Recommend continued monitoring. "What about the 3 sites where people died?" Thorne's fingers paused on the tablet. Immediate neural hemorrhaging. Everyone within 100 meters, dead within seconds. No warning. No detectable energy release. Just... She made a sharp cutting motion across her throat. The monolith hummed again, that deep vibration that made my teeth ache. I stepped back instinctively. "But this one's different," I said. "It started transmitting on its own. Structured patterns. That's when Command activated the Chimera project," Thorne said, indicating our surroundings. "Everything here was built in 4 months. I studied the electromagnetic readings on her monitors. The waveforms looked familiar, burst transmissions with embedded data packets, similar to what I'd intercepted from insurgent communications. But the mathematical precision exceeded human capability." "These patterns aren't random," I said, pointing at the screen. "Exactly," Thorne replied. "Someone's trying to communicate with us. We just need to figure out how to respond." The chamber door hissed open. A woman entered, pushing a cart loaded with electronic gear. She was compact and athletic, wearing navy coveralls with safety glasses pushed up on her forehead. "Mara Finch," she said, extending a work-roughened hand. "Engineering." "Evan Cross, Communications." "Good, you're here." Finch began unloading frequency generators from her cart, each one enhanced with additional circuitry and cooling systems. "I've been working on these for 3 weeks, modified to produce extremely low-frequency pulses at 7.83 Hz. "Schumann resonance," I said, recognizing the frequency. "Earth's natural electromagnetic pulse." Finch connected cables between the generators and monitoring equipment. Dr. Thorne's theory suggests these objects were designed to communicate using planetary electromagnetic fields. I watched her work, noting the precision of her modifications. "You plan to activate it." "We plan to communicate with it," Thorne corrected. "Is there a difference?" I looked between them. "Because activating unknown technology without understanding its purpose violates every security protocol I know." Thorne walked to the monolith and placed her hand against its surface. The symbols around her palm flickered, rearranging into new patterns before settling back. "It's already responding to us," she said. "Watch." Finch powered up one generator. A low hum filled the chamber. The monolith's surface rippled like liquid, symbols flowing and reforming in complex cascades. The electromagnetic readings on Thorne's monitors surged, showing structured patterns that weren't random. "It's waiting," Thorne said, her voice filled with excitement. Years of silence, and now it's finally ready to talk. I stared at the shifting symbols, my training sounding warnings I couldn't articulate. The mathematical elegance was beautiful, but beauty didn't guarantee safety. Overseas, the most sophisticated enemy transmissions often preceded the deadliest attacks. "What if it's not trying to communicate?" I said. "What if it's trying to activate something?" Thorne's hand remained pressed against the monolith's surface, symbols continuing to flow around her fingers. "Then we need to understand what before someone else figures it out first." The generators hummed louder. The monolith's response grew more complex. Whatever we were about to unleash, I felt certain that once started, there would be no stopping it. The electromagnetic array hummed to life around the monolith. Finch's modified generators arranged in a perfect hexagon for optimal field resonance. I watched her push the equipment beyond recommended limits. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the chamber's constant chill. "The transformers are overheating," I said, checking the readouts on her monitoring station. "I know," Finch replied, adjusting the frequency modulation without looking up. "But we need steady output at precisely 7.83 Hz with perfect harmonic intervals. The math only works at those exact frequencies." The first transformer failed with a sharp crack and the smell of burning electronics. Finch cursed and swapped in a backup unit, her movements practiced and efficient. "Maybe we should," I began. "Under control," she interrupted. The second backup transformer sparked and died. Finch was already reaching for the third. "Come on, you useless machine." Thorne paced behind us, her blue eyes fixed on the monolith's surface where symbols now shifted faster than before. "Whatever you're doing, it's working. Look at the response patterns." The third transformer held. The array settled into a steady rhythm. Electromagnetic pulses washed over the monolith at Earth's natural frequency. The black stone surface rippled like water, symbols flowing in cascades that strained the eyes. Then something changed. The air above the monolith shimmered. Numbers appeared, not on any screen, but floating in space like three-dimensional light projections. Finch breathed a stunned oath. The numbers hung in the air: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23. "Prime numbers," declared a voice from the chamber entrance. I turned to see a woman in her mid-30s with dark hair tied in a practical ponytail. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone used to solving complex puzzles. "Lena Shaw," she said, extending her hand. "Cryptography. Evan Cross, Communications." I shook her hand while keeping one eye on the floating numbers. "You're sure those are primes?" "Absolutely. But look at the sequence." Shaw pulled out a tablet and began taking notes. "They're not in base 10. This is base 8 mathematics." The implications hit me like a physical blow. Universal mathematical concepts. "Exactly," Shaw said. "Whatever's in there understands primes are constant regardless of counting system. It's proving it can think." Thorne moved closer to the holographic display, her face lit with excitement. "We're actually communicating with it." I started documenting each transmission in my log, noting timestamps and electromagnetic readings. The pattern recognition part of my brain worked overtime cataloging the mathematical relationships, while another part screamed warnings about revealing our capabilities. "We should stop here," I said. "Study these responses before we send anything else." "Are you insane?" Thorne turned to face me. "This is first contact with non-human intelligence. We can't stop now. We don't know what we're talking to or what it wants. Basic security protocol says." "Basic security protocol doesn't cover this situation," Thorne cut in. "Finch, can you modulate our signal to send the Fibonacci sequence?" Finch looked between us, her hands hovering over the controls. "I can, but Evan's right about taking this slowly." "Momentum is critical," Thorne insisted. "After decades of silence, we can't risk losing this opportunity because we're too cautious." I watched her input the Fibonacci sequence into the transmission array. The numbers appeared above the monolith. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. The response was immediate. New symbols flowed across the monolith's surface. The holographic display shifted to show atomic numbers: 1 for hydrogen, 6 for carbon, 7 for nitrogen, 8 for oxygen. "It knows our atmospheric composition," Shaw said, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "How?" I demanded. "We didn't send that information." Thorne was already programming the next transmission. Send the atomic numbers for Earth's atmosphere. Nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide. Dr. Thorne, I strongly advise. Noted and overruled. She activated the transmission before I could stop her. The monolith's response chilled my blood. The holographic display expanded into a three-dimensional star chart, showing Earth's position from multiple viewpoints across the galaxy. Constellations I recognized from different angles. Stellar distances calculated with impossible precision. It knows where we are, I said. Shaw was frantically taking notes. These coordinate systems are incredibly sophisticated. It's showing us Earth's position relative to galactic center, local stellar group, even accounting for orbital mechanics. What are you translating? I asked. Celestial navigation. But the mathematical concepts are beyond anything we've developed. Look at these interstellar distance calculations. Finch's equipment started showing harmonic resonance patterns that made me nervous. Power outputs climbing on their own. The systems are trying to match the monolith's energy signature. Can you control it? For now. But if this goes into uncontrolled feedback, we could lose everything. Thorne wasn't listening. She stared at the star charts with the intensity of someone seeing their life's work validated. It's showing us the galaxy from its perspective. This proves interstellar travel is possible. It proves something knows where Earth is located, I corrected. That's not necessarily good news. Finch, increase power output. I want maximum signal resolution. Dr. Thorne, the harmonic resonance. Do it. Finch's jaw tightened, but she complied. The generators hummed louder. The monolith's response grew more complex. New symbols appeared faster than Shaw could translate. I'm seeing biological diagrams, she said. Molecular structures, genetic sequences. It's asking about our biosphere. Every instinct I developed overseas screamed warnings. We're revealing too much. This is exactly how intelligence operations work. Start with basic information, build trust, then extract critical data. This isn't an intelligence operation. Thorne snapped. This is scientific discovery. How do you know the difference? She pulled out a sealed envelope with Vance's signature across the flap. Because I have written authorization giving me complete scientific authority over first contact protocols. I stared at the envelope, recognizing the weight of official orders, but my training also recognized the signs of an operation spiraling out of control. Dr. Thorne, I'm filing a formal objection to transmitting detailed biosphere information. Noted. She was already programming the next transmission sequence. Finch, prepare to send human genome data. Human genome? I stepped between her and the controls. Absolutely not. It's asking for biological specifications. We need to show we understand the question. We need to understand what it plans to do with that information. Thorne's blue eyes burned with fanatical intensity. We're making history. Evan, don't let fear stop us from taking the next step in human evolution. I looked at the star chart still floating above the monolith, showing Earth's position with terrifying accuracy. Whatever we were talking to had been watching us for a long time. And now we were about to tell it everything about human biology. This is a mistake, I said. It's a breakthrough. Thorne activated the transmission before I could stop her. The human genome sequence flowed into space. 46 chromosomes worth of genetic information broadcast to something that already knew exactly where to find us. I opened my facility log and typed, "Formal objection filed. Dr. Thorne authorized transmission of human genetic data against security protocols. Recommend immediate halt to all communications pending threat assessment." But even as I wrote it, I knew it was too late. We'd already told them everything they needed to know.